Today's session is on avoidance. Today's session is on avoidance. So we've talked in depth about becoming who God created us to be, right? And how part of that includes resetting ourselves, right? Part of that reset or going back to his original design, it involves us taking action towards us becoming our authentic self, right? And so that means that we have to get rid of the mask. That means that we have to get rid of the other personalities and those fake representatives, the representatives that we send instead of ourselves, right? We have to get rid of those negative coping mechanisms, right? We have to show up to the world as who we were created to be, dealing with our flaws and dealing with our fears, right? So, in order to do that, it involves facing ourselves and others. Okay, we're not going to any longer ignore our disappointments, ignore our mistakes. We're going to face our flaws. We're going to face our fears, right? We're no longer going to avoid the people that we have to have those conversations with. We're not going to avoid the triggers, the things that are triggering us. We're not going to avoid our feelings, our anxieties. We're not going to avoid our failures, right? We're going to allow them to become lessons, right? We're going to deal with them. Okay. So today we're going to focus on avoidance, right? Why we do it, and why we should stop. And hopefully you all will leave away with some nuggets that you can use in your daily lives, right? So avoidance is anytime you anticipate painful or unpleasant conversations, feelings, or situations. Avoidance is anytime you anticipate that, you run. Okay. Avoidance is anytime you anticipate painful or unpleasant conversations, feelings, emotions, situations, you run. That's avoidance. Okay. Some of us flee mentally, some of us flee emotionally, some of us actually flee physically, right? And avoidance includes these things. Okay. Avoidance includes avoiding serious conversations. Okay. Avoidance includes avoiding the people that you need to have these conversations with, right? Avoidance includes when you avoid setting boundaries. You avoid telling people when you've had enough, when too far is too far. You avoid the truth. When you refuse to go places that make you uncomfortable mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I'm talking about places you need to go. I'm not talking about places you're not supposed to be. So avoidance is when you refuse to go to those places. You refuse to address those feelings. You refuse to acknowledge those emotions. You refuse to go and visit the people that you need to visit to have closure, to apologize, right? To make things right. Okay. Avoidance is, like I said, not addressing your emotions, not addressing your feelings, your fears, not addressing your failures. Avoidance is also shutting down. Avoidance is also when you ignore yourself and you ignore others, right? Avoidance is also avoiding making decisions. Avoidance is also denying there is a problem or minimizing a problem, right? All of these things are avoidance, okay? And with all of these things that we run from, there are different tactics that we use to run from them, right? We premeditate what people are going to say or do, right? Which is a fear response. Okay. So we avoid saying certain words. We avoid asking certain questions. We avoid doing certain things. This is a fear response. And doing this slowly causes you to change your personality. It causes you to change who you are, right? It even builds up tension in your body because you are anticipating something that may be true, right? But it's causing you not to act or respond in a way that is authentic to you. And we learn this at a very early age, right? To not do this so someone doesn't do this or someone doesn't say this, right? We learn this very, very early on, right? And so I want to emphasize that I am not referring to avoiding unhealthy communication. You want to avoid people that just have no understanding, right? So I'm talking about when you need to have those conversations, when you need to set those boundaries, right? So there's some people who have no understanding because their comprehension department needs Jesus or therapy. I'm not talking about forcing that type of communication. Okay, I'm referring to giving someone correct information that gives them an understanding of who you are, what your boundaries are, what your expectations are. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So if somebody asks you what you think or what you feel about something, that gives them information about who you are. When someone asks you that and you don't give them the truth because you want to control their response, well, now you have to begin to live as their version of you, right? Because that's what they expect. That's the information you gave them. That's what they understand you to be. That's what they understand you to like, right? So now you have to live as their version of you, right? So the real you gets pushed back into a prison, right? Some of us are imprisoned in our minds. Some of our spirits are imprisoned, right? Because we have become a version of the lies that we've told to someone about who we are. Okay. And sometimes you don't do it intentionally. You do it, maybe you didn't want to hurt someone's feelings, right? But you put yourself back in a prison. Okay. And you have to come up with new ways to present this other version of yourself, right? Because it's not you, right? And so oftentimes when you do this, your true feelings will show up on your face without your permission, right? It'll show up in how you respond. And instead of freeing your true self from that prison, you add another chain, right? Every time you discount yourself, every time you discount your feelings and your emotions, every time you ignore that someone has crossed the boundary, every time you do that, you are chaining yourself to limits that will eventually take every possibility, every hope, every dream until your future is only seen as yesterday, right? That's what it does. You no longer see ahead of you. You only see the past, right? You live there in the past in these invisible chains in a prison that controls your thinking, controls your feelings. It controls your experiences, right? And the only perspective you have is past tense, right? I used to. They used to. You're always talking about what happened in the past, what was done to you. Each one of these chains, each one of these things is a chain that gives you a limit that you cannot see beyond that, right? So every time you minimize yourself, you put yourself in a prison, right? And when you do that, your future is only seen as a yesterday, past tense, okay? Another example of avoidance, and the tactic we use is when someone asks how we're doing, right? Something common, right? Somebody asks, how are you doing? And there's a difference in saying what you want to feel and what you're actually experiencing, right? And you can tell somebody, I feel depressed, but it's not who I am. And I'm talking to Christians because we have this thing where we call things that are not as though they were. But you can feel a way and not be a way, right? You can express, this is what I feel, this is what I'm thinking, this is what is going on, but that's not who I am. Okay? You can feel a way, but not be a way. You can feel hurt, but not become the hurt that you're feeling. Okay? So when someone asks how you're doing, and we're not talking about unhealthy people, we're talking about people that you discern, mean you well, and you know love you. When someone asks how you are doing, this is an opportunity to break chains. Something that seems so casual. This is an opportunity to break chains. You can give someone the key by responding to their question with the truth. Okay, this is an exchange, right? It's an exchange to release your pressure, to release pain, to release fear, and in return, receive what God has implanted in them to give to you. Okay. And so, like I said, you have to discern their character, but God will literally send angels in human form with the peace, with the strength, with the comfort that you need. But you must be willing to make that exchange. You can't keep the fear and the peace. It's not, you have to exchange it. Okay. God will literally give people the grace to allow you to release your burdens to them. And you don't know this, but he's given them an extra grace to give you what it is that you need, right? A grace to bring peace. So he gives them a supernatural supply of peace, a supernatural supply of understanding, of love, to give to everyone that is willing to make that exchange. Okay, I need you to understand this. So give somebody the keys to unlock those chains on you and stop avoiding expressing how you really feel. Okay, and we avoid telling people what bothers us, right? But it gives them information so that they have an understanding that, hey, this is the limit. This is as far as I can go with this person. Okay. If you never let somebody know, you cannot continue getting frustrated when they keep adding stuff to you, right? You won't tell them you're overwhelmed. You won't tell them you had enough. You won't tell them they crossed the line. So it continues until you stop it, right? You are in control of how people treat you, okay? And so some of these conflicts we could have solved with a yes or no response. We didn't even have to go into details. But when someone asked us a question, we could have said yes or no. Let your yay be yay, let your nay be nay, right? Think about how long you've been chained up because you said yes when you should have said no. Think about how long you have been chained up when you said no when you should have said yes. Just think about that. And so conflict only arises when a person has to make a decision between two things or two activities that they don't like, right? So if you continue being conflicted about what you feel versus what they feel, you will not make healthy decisions, right? Everybody's not going to be happy. Okay. You have to be sure about your position, right? Which some people are still learning how to think for themselves because they were so busy thinking for other people, focusing on other people's feelings, pleasing them, that their thinking process doesn't start within them, right? It starts with, what are they going to say? Well, what are they going to do? Right? It starts with that outside perspective. Okay. So what you are doing to avoid someone else's reaction is causing you to avoid yourself. Okay. Their opinion has become your master. Okay. Their influence over you has caused you to avoid becoming who God has created you to be. Okay. Avoidance also causes you to have misplaced courage. Avoidance causes you to have misplaced courage. You're bold in inappropriate things, right? You're passive aggressive and you're sarcastic because you're avoiding being direct with people, right? It gives you this misplaced courage. You will boldly tell somebody who doesn't influence you what you're not about to do, right? But the person who does influence you, you won't tell them no. Why is that? You will lay your horn and stick random fingers out, right, to people that cut you off in traffic, but you're silent when your family member crossed the line. You have an avoidance issue, okay? And so we create these habits of avoidance to cope with unfavorable conversations, to cope with stressful events and unpleasant behaviors from other people. Fear and pride will steer these habits. They drive these negative coping mechanisms, right? Even if what you are anticipating to happen turns out to happen exactly the way you thought it would, at least The limits are not on you, right? At least you're not stuck or bound to the past with no hope, with no dream, with no future, right? If someone is not going to be at peace, it's not your intention, right? But you can't imprison yourself for the sake of someone else's feelings. There is a way you can tell someone what is the truth about who you are and how you feel without causing an issue, right? And so we experience avoidance emotionally by avoiding thoughts and feelings about a traumatic event. Okay. This type of avoidance is internal, it's in your soul. Okay. So it affects your will. Okay. People around you will not know what you're avoiding or why. So that's something you have to tell them. Okay. We experience avoidance mentally by remaining undisciplined, by ignoring the truth, by forcing opposite thoughts and feelings, right? We force ourselves to say we're happy and we're sad, right? You force yourself to think that you are something that you are not, right? You're basically lying to yourself instead of dealing with the feeling that you actually feel. And we allow ourselves to be distracted purposely so that we don't focus on what we're supposed to be doing or where we're supposed to be, right? That's how we avoid things mentally. We experience avoidance physically by shutting down. We shut down communication. We isolate ourselves. We pick fights so we don't have to deal with people, right? We overwork. Okay, anything you do physically to avoid facing reality, that is avoidance. Okay, that is avoidance. So we have to learn positive, healthy coping skills. None of it's going to be comfortable to you at first. The things that I tell you, most of them you don't desire to do because it's easy to avoid communication. It's easy to be somebody else, right? It's easy to just stay broken, but it takes strength, it takes discipline, it takes hard work to heal. Okay, it takes courage to be you unapologetically, right? It don't take courage to be yourself behind closed doors because there's no conflict. Okay, there's no one to challenge your beliefs and take shots at your weaknesses, right? It doesn't take courage to be you behind closed doors. It takes courage to be yourself openly and unapologetically, right? There's no one to question your value behind closed doors, right? It takes courage to be faithful to who you truly are, regardless of the opinion of the world. Okay. You have to decide, do you believe God has not made a mistake with you, that he knows what he's doing? Or do you believe that these people who didn't even create a molecule of you knows better, knows more than God? Most of your feelings of inadequacy come from outside of you, right? Somebody looked a certain way, said something, did something. And instead of you looking to your creator or looking within you to find the truth, you became their opinion. Okay. Because when an inadequacy is something that comes from you, from within you, something that you know that you have a weakness in, you know that God's strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. So we begin to have ideas and instructions that point us in the direction of perfection, right? And because it came from within, we know that it's not in our power that's going to correct it, right? We can feel God's strength in that thing, okay? But when we focus on naysayers or outside opinions, right? There's this feeling of hopelessness. There's this feeling of unworthiness, okay? A person that is sent by God to correct you or to let you know you did something wrong or you're not doing something right, when they tell you what you need to correct, they will instruct you, they will strengthen you, they will encourage you. They won't just point out a weakness without a solution. Okay. So you have to think about, why is it that I feel inadequate? Why is it that I feel like I can't? Is it something that came from within you, like God is revealing this to you? Or is it because someone else, probably a jealous person, probably somebody sent to destroy your destiny, told you what you couldn't do. Okay, so start dealing with your avoidance issues. First, you can start by managing your stress. Where's the most stressful areas in your life? Which situations are you dealing with unnecessarily? Which situations are you dealing with that you could have handled with a yes or a no? What is stealing your peace, right? Deal with the stresses that are unnecessary, okay? You're stressing over something when you could have had a 2-minute conversation, okay? We have to develop healthy coping skills and replace this negative coping mechanism of avoidance, okay? We naturally tend to avoid things because of discomfort. If it's uncomfortable, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to have no parts of it, right? But just because you are uncomfortable doing something does not mean it's not necessary for you to do it. Okay, that discomfort can become an interruption that causes you to allow stagnation in your life. Okay, you could just stay right there at that line, not willing to cross over, right? And there's courage on the other side to meet you. Once you cross over that line of discomfort, you find courage, right? To keep going, to keep pushing, right? Discomfort challenges your discipline, right? It challenges your stability. It challenges your faithfulness. That's what it's there to do. So what will you do? Will you push forward? Will you cross the line? Will you face the fear? Right? Be willing to be uncomfortable so that you can accomplish your goals. Unchain yourself, overcome the fear of people's opinions and expectations because you are perfect according to God's standard for you, not man. We're so busy trying to live up to man's standard, and that's not the standard God has for you. Even if that standard is for someone else, that's not God's standard for you. We are perfectly and wonderfully made. We are individually created for a purpose, right? All of that is tied into what God's standard is for you. All of your mistakes are tied into God's standard for you because he knew you would make those mistakes, right? So you have to stop trying to be perfect according to man. You have to look at, okay, God, what is it that you desire of me, right? And he knows the limit that he put in you. So he knows what you cannot go past, not what you think you can't go past, but he knows what you actually cannot go past, right? And so you have to take the first step to gain the courage you need to have those hard conversations, okay? To make those hard decisions, to put yourself in the world as God's handcrafted masterpiece. He made no mistakes when he made you. If he made you soft, he did it because it works with your purpose. You have no business becoming hard. He didn't make a mistake. Okay? If he made you sensitive, it works with your purpose. If he made you hard and with thicker skin, it works with your purpose. Okay? I've had people actually say to me that you need to say this differently, but that's not how I heard it, right? And I know that what I say, there's deliverance in what I say. There's authority in what I say because I know my purpose. I know my demeanor and my character works with my purpose. So I can't be what you want me to be because you don't want to digest truth. Okay? So that means you have to stop avoiding yourself. You, the real you. Stop avoiding you. Okay? You are avoiding yourself. And you do that because you are avoiding other people's reactions. Okay? Give somebody a key today. Okay? To unlock your chains, to break those limitations off of you so that you're no longer avoiding happiness. You're no longer avoiding growth. You're no longer avoiding your greatness that was placed on the inside of you. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about, what have you been avoiding? What have you been avoiding? What truths have you not told? Right? When you don't tell the truth, you're the one that's in prison. You're the one that's bound, right? Because the other person, they just have the information and they continue with their lives with the information that you gave them. But now you have to keep up this version of yourself that you lied about, right? And the real you, unless you've been doing it for a really long time, the real you will show up. It's going to show up. And now you have to create another way to present this other representative, right? Because you said, oh, I don't mind, but the real you showed up in your face, right? They didn't ask you permission. You just showed up in your face. And so now you have to explain, when from the beginning, if you had addressed it and said, hey, no, I'm not comfortable doing this. No, I don't have the time to do this. No, this is something you need to do. If you'd have said that from the beginning, you would have never been chained. And then what we do with that is we tend to say, well, if this person hadn't said, or if this person hadn't done, but did they do it because of what you told them or what they believed you to be, right? So I want you to think about what you've been avoiding, who you've been avoiding. Think about those decisions you haven't made yet. Okay, make the decision so that you can unchain yourself. If someone asks, how are you? Especially if it's me, I don't carelessly ask people how they're doing. It's because I felt something. And so when you say I'm okay, I know you're bound. And so I begin to pray. But what happens when I pray, the Holy Spirit starts telling stuff, right? And there's no like limit. When you can hear God, there is no limit. Sometimes he tell you stuff you don't want to know, right? When the person could have just said, you know what, I had a bad day. I blew up on somebody and I'm feeling bad about it. Like releasing that, releasing the shame, releasing the guilt, releasing the pressure so that they don't become bound to that feeling, right? Because you still have the feeling, but you're bound. Okay. And so think about that even for other people, right? When you ask them how they're doing, be prepared to exchange. Be prepared to give them what God has graced you with. If he's graced you with strength, be prepared to give that to them as they exchange with you their weakness. Be prepared to exchange strength, right? If they are in a state of confusion, be prepared to exchange understanding, right? Allow them to give you the key to unlock themselves, right? And don't take it for granted when people trust you, when they're vulnerable with you, with their true feelings. Okay? So that was the lesson on today. I want to end with our statement that this feeling is temporary. It is just a process. We're going to face our disappointments in ourselves and in others. Some stuff is your fault. It was a bad decision, but you can make it better. You can change the outcome. You can change the direction of your life. Okay. Your life is more than the sum of your hard experiences. Your life is more than the sum of your pain and your failures. You can still climb that mountain or just command it to move. You will live again. Your happiness is not determined by what is happening now. It is determined by what will happen later. So what you do with this moment is imperative to you understanding why you needed to go through it, why it happened to you. And after that, you will see that it happened for you. One thing God revealed to me, that is a form of pride. If God has gifted you and placed you in this earth for a purpose, but you're basically saying you don't know what you're doing, or I'm not going to do what you created me to do because I know better than you. I know I can't do this, even though he created you to do that thing. So that is a form of rebellion and pride. It looks like humility, right? It looks like humility, but if God purposed you for something, that's what you have to do, and we cannot That's what we're telling God. You don't know who you made. He knows who he made, right? And he knows what he put in you. And so we have to be careful that we are not operating in pride and rebellion that is looking like humility. Okay. So I pray you all have a blessed weekend. Stop avoiding stuff. Okay. Go make those decisions. Go talk to those people. Free yourself. Okay. And God bless you.